Hey guys, welcome to Replay Analysis. I'm your host, ViBE. It's me. I'm ViBE. Yep, you don't know who I am? Well, now you do. I'm not actually a little green gecko. I'm actually this guy. And we're doing a replay analysis. We're doing a replay analysis. Yes, you did deserve that timeout, Solidmore. Okay, you want another one? I'm doing an intro. We're doing a replay analysis, guys. And today we're doing a fucking TvT. Terran versus Terran. Silver League. Silver League. So basically, we don't we don't know what's going on in this game, but we'll figure it out. But the goal is we're gonna help Robot Wizard, our subject of the day. I'm gonna guess he's number 2. Okay, if I was gambling, I would put $100 down right now on number 2 being Robot Wizard. Fuck. God damn it, Robot Wizard. Okay, he's number 1. I lost $100. It's okay, but we're gonna we're gonna basically help him figure out what he's doing right, what he's doing wrong. Let him know all the details. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's see what's going on. Let's see what's up with Robot Wizard. Okay, first of all, gotta stack them close patches. Okay, you guys have heard me say that 5,000 times, so I won't go into detail. Secondly, you gotta keep making SCVs. Don't forget that. Well, it was probably like 10 seconds where you didn't make an SCV. That is a bit damaging to your economy. Try to not let that happen. Good job making another SCV that time. That was good. Nice. Nice. What about this time? Oof. Wasted about 2 seconds there again. Gotta make that barracks as well right away. How long did you wait for the barracks? 44. Depot's done. Just 45 should be when your barracks starts, because it takes like 1 second for the SV to go to here and build the barracks right away. Barracks starts at 49. So a few seconds wasted. You gotta I would say, I know, you know, there's moments here and there where you feel you might be overwhelmed and stuff like that, but in general, things like this need to be quicker because your build is falling behind in so many ways due to just speed. This game is like a good way to I like to describe StarCraft 2. I've done this before a few times, but StarCraft 2 is like a build, or like your opener of your game is like a time trial. It literally is like a time trial. Like if you were to compare yourself now to what would be the maximum efficiency of what could have been done, just and nothing has happened that has distracted you, like there's no attacks going on yet or anything like that, your build, in my opinion, already is behind by probably like 6 seconds overall, or like 7 seconds, because of the lack of the command center building SCVs a couple times. It's been like you're only like 49 seconds in the game and the command center has already not built SCVs for like 14 seconds of that. So that's almost like almost a third. It's more like almost like it's like between a third and fourth, but you get the point. It's a lot. And then the barracks being late and stuff like that, and then I think the depot might have been late too. Okay, but you have the right idea though with the gas. You take a barracks around the same time as your gas. What is going on with this guy? What is he doing? He's gonna scout. Okay, if he scouts, that's fine. But you can see, like, for instance, you're already 1 SCV behind your opponent. That's kind of rough. And then his is back up again. So yeah, you're like always gonna consistently be like just a little bit behind. Now with Terran's a little bit different than Zerg, guys. Okay. Terran is a little bit different than Zerg. When it comes to Zerg, a lot of times I tell people to not take your drones off the mineral line and fill in the gas as you go. And the reason why is because everything Zerg makes is mineral focused. Now for you, As Terran, it's the opposite. You should, as soon as you take that gas, the second it is done, you should fully saturate that bad boy. The reason why is because whatever you are going to do, whether it be I don't think you should make a Reaper because this is silver, but if you were going to make a Reaper, or if you were going to make an add-on, or if you're going to make a factory, all of these things, you need that gas for that. So if you actually slowly fill in your gas as Terran, it's going to severely kind of hiccup your build. It would make me question, why would there be a gas taken at all if there's only going to be one SCV on it for Terran. Okay, so you scout. You see he's got an expansion. You also have an expansion. He's got a barracks with an add-on on it, which is fine. And he's got one gas. You have a barracks with nothing and one gas. So your guys' builds are almost the same thing. Almost the same thing. But yeah, your build's a little inefficient, and here's more reasons why. So another thing you're doing right now is you're starting to build a second gas already. I'm actually going to fast forward and see what your goal is. I need to know what your goal is for a second before I really take you down paths. Okay, so you're going for a factory. You're going for a tech lab. You're going to probably swap. Looks like you're doing B2GM possibly. Tech lab, factory again, tank. I just want to get an idea of your build. Armory. Tank Thor. Okay, it looks like you are going B2GM. Okay, your build is a bit fudged. Let me tell you what I think you should be doing, because this is not super efficient. We'll go back now. Okay, so first things first. Back around the start of the game here. We'll speed up a little bit. Go past this point. But first things first is, like I said, you should definitely get that gas. Like, literally have your command center always rallied on the mineral line and rip off 2 SCVs off the mineral line and put them on the gas. You want to saturate that gas as soon as possible with all 3 so that you can make a faster factory. Now, doing what you did here where you make a second gas isn't the greatest idea, because this dude should actually just be mining this gas. The fact that you only have 1 on this gas and this guy's now building a second gas, he'd be better off just giving you more gas income by being a miner rather than a builder. Like, yeah. And now you're taking the SCVs off the mineral line even more. You have that one coming back. This one gets stripped off. You have 13 right now on the mineral line.
Command center upgrade complete.
And now you fully saturate this gas. This gas is too early. This gas was too late. The ideal situation you want to go for is you want to take... So, Protoss, Terran, and Zerg, I know I said there's no build order. There really isn't a build order for the whole game, but there kind of is a build order for the first, like, 2 minutes. And for Terran, what you want to do, if you're going to do a B2GM style build, it's something like this, okay? Depot, barracks, gas, command center, factory, depot, gas. Or you could rotate factory, gas, depot. Either way works. I would probably say though, if you don't make a marine, you could go gas depot. But if you do make a marine, you should probably go depot gas, because you'll supply block your SCVs probably. Otherwise. So again, I'll say it one more time. We'll just do the one. We'll assume you might make a marine, and I'll give you the one that'll save you from supply blocking. Depot, barracks, gas, command center, factory, depot, gas. And then from that point on, it's kind of open-ended as to what the hell you want to do. Just as long as it's efficient. It's like, as long as you're expanding and being efficient is really all it is. And we'll get to that point in a second here, because I saw you fuck that up too in a little bit. Like double tech labs, you don't want to do double tech labs. It's too expensive. But yeah, so like right now, the fact that you have you had a single gas for way too long, it delayed your factory, and now you're exploding your gas like crazy by double gassing with 11 SCVs on the mineral line. That is too That is way too much. It's... I feel like you've just missed SCV. Like, this is also a fact of you've... So, when did you take this gas? Did you actually take this gas, like, just before you built the factory? You did. Okay, yeah. So, again, you should have just built this gas right after you took the factory. And you also did miss SCVs in production time on your command center, which delayed the amount of SCVs you have. So, you're down... You're, like, in a weird low number of SCVs. Because your SCV count being 11 on the mineral line at 2 minutes and, like, 30 seconds is a bit scary. That's super low.
Command center upgrade complete.
Yeah, like going back to 11 right now, this is it's dicey. And then you have forgot, and don't ever, so this is a Protoss thing, I would say. Protosses rally into the gas. Protosses like to rally into the gas. I'm actually really glad you submitted this, Alpha Omega, because I haven't done enough Terran ones lately. Protosses are all about rallying their Nexus into the gas to fill it up so that they can maintain 16 to 16 on the mineral line the whole time. But Terran works differently. You should just leave the rally on the mineral line the whole time, and you fill up the gas immediately when you make the gas, but you don't make the gas until you need the gas. The reason why it works like this for Zerg, the reason why it works like that for Zerg, where Zerg just focuses on 16 out of 16 on the mineral line, is because Zerg units, Overlords, Queens, Zerglings, hatcheries, all these things are pure mineral only, and you can get by with those things. If Queens didn't exist, Zerg would be weird with gas as well. But because of Queens, Zerg can do mineral focused builds. Protoss can do mineral focused builds because of Chrono Boost. They get probes super fast, so they can get to 22 probes, which is a full saturated base on their main base, really fast. And then they need to take the gas, otherwise their probes are going to be oversaturated and it's not going to make any sense. And then having that gas allows Protoss to actually tech. But for Terran, you actually have delays with things like when you make... Every building has some type of a delay that is not just a supply depot or something like that. We're talking like a command center. Anything that builds a unit. A command center, a barracks, a starport, or a factory. They all have delays in the sense of this. Orbital command and planetary, that is the delay for the command center. And tech lab and reactor is the delay for every production building that is not a command center. They all have delays, and one thing about these delays that you need to keep in mind is that a lot of these things cost gas, other than the orbital command, but like the reactors cost gas, the tech labs cost gas, the getting your factory cost gas. They all cost a lot of gas. Terran is expensive early in the game, so Terran needs to maximize gas when you need it. Like, again, I already gave you the timers of the first two gases, which is barracks gas is the first gas. You combine those together. Factory gas is the second gas. You combine them together. You build them at the same time. So you let that first gas pump enough gas into you to eventually get to a factory, which will be fast if you fully saturate it. So the thing about Terran is you need to get that, like, again, you have to saturate the gas the second it's done. You need to do that, otherwise your timings are going to be fucking way off. Terran needs gas at certain times. And what is the trade-off for Terran? So we talked about how there, Terran has these expensive things to add on and it delays production and stuff like that. But the one trade-off Terran has is, since you saturate your gas super hard like that, and you're like, well, now ViBE, I'm no longer maintaining that 16 out of 16 saturation on my base, and instead I'm going, I'm making orbital commands and add-ons, and I'm ripping SCVs into the gas to do this and whatever. You have mules, basically, is what I'm trying to say. You have mules that can recover your economy. So if you're not actually at 16 out of 16, the mule will make up the difference. You are a bit low on the SCV count right now. Again, that's because you just weren't making them for a little while. But yeah, I want to make sure you know that making them constantly is a big deal, and making sure you leave your rally on the mineral line, not the gas. I really like that you submitted this, because a lot of people get confused about this kind of shit, I feel like. Terran players out there that are trying to learn Terran, you might try to like adopt sequences for Zerg and Protoss, and you shouldn't. Each race has their own dynamic economy that you need to kind of focus on. And the Terran version is You take gas when you need it, and you fully saturate it right away. You rip off the mineral line to do that, and the mules recover you for what you lose. And it allows you to have a flowing build with timings of whatever you're going for, depending on what your build is. So, I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. But that is definitely a problem for you right now. And the fact that you leave your rally on the gas now, I saw it goes up to 6, I believe, and that's painful again. Because each SCV right now, if you think about it, each SCV you have right now represents like 9% of your economy. Roughly. And then it goes, obviously, the percentage goes down every time you make another SCV. So if you have 12 SCVs, maybe it's more like 8%. If you have, you get my point, whatever. You could do the math if you wanted to. But this is huge right now for like having 2 more SCVs that are just doing nothing up at your gas. And you have, at least all the SCVs that you have are all doing something. They're all building something, which is good, but yeah. Scary stuff. Also, here's another thing too. I would say get out of the habit of putting an add-on where your tech lab is right there. Don't make that a habit. And the reason why is because it's 2 reasons. That it should be a depot. Number 1, the reason why is because you want to have multiple exits of your base so you have less traffic jams. Like if you only have that one depot as your exit, your units will get out of your base slower. If you ever have to like rotate in and out of your base to deal with like drops or mutas. I know this is not Terran versus Zerg, but you get my point. If things fly into your main base, you don't want to have this be closed off. You want this to be a depot so you can run in more stuff at once. So it's not a traffic jam. That's the first main reason. The second reason why you'd want this to be a depot is it's probably not something you'll encounter in the league you're playing in right now. You probably won't really encounter people who play like this till maybe like Diamond League. But in general, if someone does aggression to you, like 1 base Speedlings, 1 base Zealots, 1 base Marine all in with proxy or whatever, you want to be able to block your ramp by having depot racks and being able to still produce out of the barracks if you're getting all in. You do not want your barracks to have to spend not only gas, but also the production time of the barracks itself to be building an add-on while you're getting all in by something. You do not want to have that happen. Because if you do that, like let's say Zerglings run up your ramp and the second they're like here, you're like, oh shit, Lings, make my tech lab. My tech lab just started. And they kill your tech lab. That would suck. Because the tech lab will start a lot later since you have to mine gas for it. Whereas if you were getting all in and you scouted that, you could have just made a depot. It's just safer, is the point I'm trying to make here. It is just safer, so don't be in the habit of making your add-on there. And those are the 2 reasons why I would say you should try to get out of the habit of doing this. So instead your tech lab should be like right there. And then your barracks could be right there. Like barracks with the tech lab right there. Yeah, because the tech lab would like, it would actually be right there. Or yeah, you get the point. You get the point. It's yeah. The tech lab would actually be like right. Whatever, it doesn't matter. You get my point. This is fucking. It's making me like feel all confused because of the tech lab's like awkwardly large. Okay, now secondly. Sorry, I had double music on right there. My bad. Also, secondly, you do not want to have your rotation of SCVs. This doesn't make any sense. I think you just took them off the gas, which is what you just, I could tell you just did that because they have gas in their hands. Now this is only at 3 out of 3. And now you re-rallied the mineral line to the command center of the mineral line. But if you have an undersaturated mineral line in your main, I would say just leave them here. Like make them come back here. They should have been on this mineral in the first place because all you're doing again is you're losing mining time because you're now rotating to a base that you could rotate to later when the money is. So think about it like this. This is the thing. This is the way I want you to look at it. Remember how I talked about percentages? The lower your worker count is, the more each worker represents a higher percentage of your total economy. So if you have only 10 workers, each worker represents 10% of your economy. If you have 20 workers, each worker represents 5% of your economy, and so on and so on and so on. So the more workers you have, the less each individual worker is that impactful. It's less impactful the more you have. Sending 3 workers now, when you're not even fully saturated here, is more impactful and damaging to your economy than if you sent 3 workers one by one by one after this was fully saturated at a 16 and a 16. And then you saturated the next base. It would not hurt your economy as much. No matter what, if SCVs have to run from one base to the other, it hurts your economy, but there's no way around that. That's just how it has to be, because what are you going to do? Just not make workers in your main? That'd be even worse. But you don't want to run SCVs before you're fully saturated, because you're losing more money right now when it impacts you more. You need that money now faster, because all it's going to do now when you do shit like this is it delays your second factory. It delays your production out of your first factory. It delays your third command center. It like all these things. It just delays what's coming a little bit more than it should, because you're wasting your time faster than you need to be in terms of how you're rotating your shit around.
Command center.
So keep that in mind. Now, onto your production, okay? So your factory producing a tank, I feel like, is a bit late. Just in general. Not only is it not producing a tank for a long time, but it's just these are the things where I would say you should get in a sequence where I highly recommend that maybe you put your command center hotkey and your factory hotkey close together so you can rotate your fingers on them. 1 and 5 is awkward. Personally, I would hate 1 and 5. What you should be doing is you should, like, let's say it was on 4. Since you like 5 on a command center, that's great. That's what I use. I use 4 for factories and barracks and all that shit. What you could do is you could have your factories on 4, and you could go 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5. And you could do this like once every 3 seconds or once every 5 seconds the whole time. And it doesn't have to be the entire game. It's just the developing part of the game when your build is getting set up. And what does it do? It allows you to go like this. Look at the bottom middle of the screen. You can see your production of what you're doing. And if you see nothing in there, produce it. You should be looking at this a lot. This should be a big habit of yours, and if it's not, you need to make it one. A lot of people that don't produce, like, they just, like, for instance, when you landed the factory, it sat there for like 15 seconds, and then it built a tank. If you were making it a sequence to go 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5, and you were just looking at it while you're doing other shit, it's just like autopilot for you, where you're just like 4, 5, 4, 5, 4. You do it all the time. You'd be like, where's my tank? Where's my tank? Where's my tank? Like, it would start becoming a thing where it's like a need to make the tank. You're like, where is it? I need to make it now. And you know what that starts doing if you start doing that? It starts making your eyes do this. You have places where you look here a lot, the bottom middle of the screen for production, and then you look up here a lot at your resources and your supply. So if you're like, make a tank. If you try to make a tank and it just does not make a tank, then you could be like, why do I not have a tank yet? And you're like, oh shit, I'm short on minerals and gas. Or it's because maybe you don't have enough supply. Like, it'll train you to look at what is available, and it starts teaching you what shit costs. And if I ask you, how much does a tank cost in every way? Do you know the answer to that? And I bet the answer is no. But if you don't, if you're someone out there that does not know the answer to that, there's so many things that you can learn if you do know the answer to that. Like, you can learn the mineral cost. You can learn the gas cost. You can learn the supply cost. You can learn the build time. It'll give you ideas as to like how you're pacing your build in a good way. So a tank is 3 supply. It's 150 minerals, 125 gas, and it takes 32 seconds. And if you don't know those numbers, the build time is the one that's kind of it's not as important. But the mineral, gas, and supply cost, those are super important. Like, for instance, if If I were to ask you how much does a Cyclone cost, how much does a Widowmine cost, how much does a Hellion cost? Do you know any of those? If you don't know any, how much does a Hellbat? How about a Thor? I can tell you every one of these units. Like for instance, right now I can tell you a Hellion is 100 minerals, 2 supply. A Widowmine is 75 minerals, 25 gas, 2 supply. A Cyclone is 150, 150, 2 supply. A Hellbat is 100 minerals, still 2 supply because it's the same as a Hellion. A Thor is 300 minerals, 200 gas, 6 supply. So it's all these things. I actually got the Cyclone wrong. I was like, did I say the Cyclone wrong? I actually thought I might have. They've changed Cyclones around a bit here and there, and I don't remember which fucking... I don't play Terran enough. But it's 150 minerals, 100 gas, 3 supply. So the Cyclone's a little different. But you get the point. Like, you want to have an understanding of the game. You want to just understand the game to a degree where you're like, you actually know what the fuck the numbers mean. So it's not like... You know what the difference is? This is like the difference. Imagine if someone says to you in English, that you can understand English. They say, hey, could you go take the trash out? And then on your way back, could you get the mail? And bring it in and put it over there on the table? If you understand English, you understand what that means. You're like, yeah, I know how to do that. I can do that. But if someone says that to you in fucking like Vietnamese or in like German or in any fucking Spanish, and you're like, what? Like, what did you just tell me to do? I have no idea what you even said to me. Well, that's how you're playing StarCraft. If you play StarCraft with zero reference to numbers, if you don't pay attention to any fucking number in this game, that means you're just literally playing like a fucking blind man walking around. You're like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Whatever. We'll see what happens. What does knowing the supply number help with? It helps with how fast you need to take a depose. It also helps with understanding, like, you know how I tell you guys, and so many times at B2GM, try to go for like 16 to 20 factories. I do not say that because I just randomly pick a number out of my ass, and I'm like, ah, whatever, fuck it. Sounds like it makes sense. I say that because you can actually calculate how much supply that's going to give you in a certain time frame. And the goal of it is to basically remax you in one production cycle for the most part. So how, like, look at this, okay? Look at this. A Thor has a 43-second build time, and it has a 6 supply cost. A Hellion has a 21-second build time and a 2-second supply, or a 2 supply cost. So what does this mean? Let's say I have 20 factories, and 5 of them are reactors, and 10 of them are, or 15 of them are tech labs, and 5 of them are reactors. That means that I can make 15 times 6, which is 90 supply in my Thors only. This is 20 is on the high end, by the way. So I said 15 to 20 was like the range there, or like 16 to 20 was the range for factories. But we're going with 20. So we did 15 tech labs and like 5 reactors. So we have 90 supply in 43 seconds. Is literally just Thors. That's 90 supply. If you're stopping around 80 workers, well, we have to account for the remainder of the 30 supply that's still missing. Because if you have 90 plus 80, that's 170. And you want to go to 200, right? So if we have 5 reactors, and they can make 2 supply every... Or really, it's 4 supply because you have a reactor, which means you make 2 of them at a time. So you can make 4 supply every 21 seconds per factory, which means you can actually make 8 supply every 42 seconds, which is about the same time as a Thor. So you have 5 reactors being able to make 8 supply, and 8 times 5 is 40. So 40 plus 90 is 130, which is a little bit of excess, a little bit like 10 over essentially. That's why I quote you 16 to 20 factories. So you can just fucking remax in one cycle. That's it. I do the same thing with Protoss, and I do the same thing with Zerg. Zerg is a little different though because your production is based off your injects. It's not based off of how many hatcheries you make. Realistically. It's not that's why understanding supply is important, because if I told you make 44 factories, you'd be like, dude, I can only use like 18 of them. I can't fucking use 44 factories. It would make no sense. If I told you to make 7 factories and you have tons of money in the bank that you're not spending, and you're doing a build where it's just you max out, you bank up, and you attack, and then you remax. You would never remax with that kind of a build. So understanding supply cost of units tells you that's just for build wise, by the way. It tells you what is capable of what. Another reason why understanding supply cost is important in StarCraft 2 is because you can kind of gauge what your opponent's army looks like. So for instance, if you look at your opponent's army and you see your opponent has 10 Thors and 10 siege tanks, do you know how much supply that is? And if you don't, that's something you should know, because if you knew how much supply that was, you would know that's pretty much his entire army. Because there is a limit in this game of 200, and if your opponent has 10 Thors, which is 60 supply, and 10 tanks, which is 30 supply, means he has 90 supply in total, just there that you see right now, and that means there is no fucking chance for him to have like 10 battle cruisers on the other side, unless he has literally no SCVs, basically. So learning supply costs is important. It is important. It tells you how much investment of something. It's not just mineral gas. It's also how much investment of percentage of total supply your opponent's putting into those units. If you ever pay attention to their army, which is above Silver League, but in general, it's something you should start learning. And like, no matter who you are, if you're bronze, silver, gold, you should start learning these things. Because again, it tells you how much supply you need to make to like not hit that supply block, and it tells you how much supply your opponents have once you start paying attention to scouting. Murphy's Law, thank you for the sub, dude. And Rob, bro, thank you very much for the 50-month resub. My God, man. Fuck yeah. Thank you, dude. 90 question mark? 10 Thors and 10 tanks. Each tank. So that's the example I gave you, is 10 Thor, 10 tank. A Thor is 6 supply, and a tank is 3 supply. So 10 times 6 is 60. 10 times 3 is 30. 30 plus 60 is 90. 90 supply is basically their entire supply, because 80 supply is roughly where a lot of people will go. If you're playing B2GM style, if you are playing a bronze to GM style, you will usually sit around 80 workers. And if you have 80 workers and 90 army supply already, you don't have much supply left until you max out. You'll be at 170. So you have 30 supply left to do whatever you want with, which is like 15 Hellions. Or whatever you want to do. Or 10 Banshees. But yeah, it's just important to learn these things. If you again, it's basically like literally understanding a language. I swear to God, it's like that. If you don't know fucking costs of anything, if you don't know numbers in StarCraft 2, you are playing this game blindfolded. You're just crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. And this applies to every race, by the way. This does not just apply to Terran. It's just like if you watch a stream of a pro gamer or something, or like a really good player, and you watch them take a fight, and you right off the top of your head you just say to yourself, "Oh, he's totally gonna lose that," and then you sit there for 10 seconds and go, "What? He won the fight? What? Okay, never mind. I was wrong." You could be doing that just because you see blob versus blob and you don't really understand what either one really means. But you just go, well, that blob seems like it's bigger. But let's just say the blob was like a bunch of Hydras and Zerglings versus the other blob was a bunch of fucking Hellions and tanks. Or what? Who knows? Whatever. Any combination does not matter. But let's just say one of the unit compositions was just mathematically stronger than the other. Like it had good counters to the other army. Like a bunch of tanks versus a bunch of roaches. Or something like that. And suddenly, the blob with the better math advantages, like you know that this army is going to obliterate the other one just because of the fact that the numbers are better on the side of this army. They match, like they just work better for this army. This army's DPS is fucking insane compared to the other one. Suddenly the army that seems like it might not have won just wins. And it's because a player who takes fights like that usually understands these things. They actually know the damage of units. They know the attack speed of units. They know the health of units. They know the armor of units. They know the armor type of units. And that's when it comes to micro. Okay, we're not even talking about that right now. But just developing a habit for yourself to understand actually what the game even means is important. Like for instance, if I were to ask you a question, this is like a simple question, but if you don't know this, I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of people probably don't if they're newer to the game. But if I asked you, how much money, how much minerals does an SCV turn into the command center each time it turns it in? How much gas does an SCV turn into the command center when it turns it in? And is it different for Zerg? Is it different for Protoss? If you don't know these numbers either, these are things you should learn because it's important to understand the potential of your units. It's not 8, by the way. That's Brood War. It's 5. Brood War was 8. It's 5 minerals per turn-in StarCraft 2, and it's 4 gas per turn-in StarCraft 2. So, these are things you should learn. Like, you should try to understand the concepts of numbers in this game, because it will help a lot. I highly recommend it. If you don't do it, it's not like the end of the world, but I highly recommend you do it. It's very important if you want to get better at the game. Because, like, for instance, things like this. It is physically... This is why. If you knew the potential, okay? Listen to me for a second. If you understood the potential of what was capable of your economy, it is too expensive right now to go for double factory tech lab production on 2 gases and still maintain efficiency. It is too expensive. The reason why it's too expensive is because if you actually do it, you will never be able to afford like the things you need right now, which is more command centers for more economy. You'll have to cut somewhere. You'll have to cut tanks producing or whatever. Things will have to be cut out of your build. Like, it'll be up, down, up, down, up, down. And you'll have to... and you make an armory as well, which is expensive in itself. It's 150 minerals, 100 gas. That's almost the cost of a tank right there in itself. And that's for the purpose of making Thors, which are even more expensive than tanks. They're almost twice as expensive as a tank. And if you made 2 Thors at a time, that's 600 minerals and 400 gas every cycle, which is fucking expensive. Like, you're not going to be able to afford more factories. You're not going to be able to afford upgrades, really. Like, the only way you would be able to afford these things would be stopping production. And that is always a big negative. The whole goal you want to have in this game is you want to be able to maintain production the whole time. Like, you want your building to literally be pumping. It never stops. It's like an assembly line that just never fucking quits. If you don't do that, like this is... I would say this, okay? This is my honest opinion. GM players will maybe 1 to 2 seconds. 1 to 2 seconds of time on their buildings where they'll maybe miss it and be like, oh fuck, start it again. Or maybe they just like cut the corner super close and they barely can afford it in their build for whatever they're doing. 1 to 2 seconds usually for a GM player. If they ever have either that or 0 for time missed between units. For a Masters player, probably double that. It's probably like 2 to 4. For a Diamond player, double it again. 4 to 8. For a Platinum, they literally double it again for every league. I'm not even kidding. And when you get down to like fucking Silver, it starts being literally like where people will legit let their buildings sit there for like 30 to 40 seconds at a time and do nothing with them. And that shit is why your league is in Silver. Like, for anyone who is curious as to what the, like, why it's so hard to get out of Silver or whatever like that, things like that, or Gold, it's because you just don't fucking produce shit. You don't make SCVs when you need to make SCVs all the time, and you don't use your production when you need to make it, and then you end up feeling like you have more money than you should, which is true because you just don't produce, so you overproduce your production. You're like, well, fuck, dude, I have like 1,000 minerals. Why don't we just make 3 more factories right now when you can't afford it? Because if when you make an extra round of factories, you're able to afford it for like 1 cycle of production, and then you go back down to exactly what you were before, which is you just produce nothing for another 40 seconds. Which is very bad. It's just a waste of money and time. Okay, so again, I would say for you, so here's the final tip I'll give you, and then we'll kind of progress through this. I know we've spent a lot of time on this part, because it's very important. But this is what I would tell you, Robot Wizard. I highly recommend that you watch a B2GM video of like pick one of the videos that you liked or one of the games you liked. You can download the replay pack as well in my Discord. It's in like the B2GM channel if you want to find it easily. And what you could do is you could bust out like a spreadsheet or like a notepad. You don't have to go full on spreadsheet mode. You could literally use a notepad. I use a notepad myself because it's fucking easy. It doesn't really matter. And what you could do is you could write down on the notepad. You could write 2 builds down, and you don't have to write the whole build down. You just write specific key points down. You write down like Vibes build, and then below that you could write down your build. You only have to write down Vibes build one time. You could write down your build each time you want to compare. And you could compare again, the way I like to do it is you do like 10 minutes where it's minute 1. At minute 1, write down how many workers and supply I have. At minute 2, how much workers and supply do I have? At minute 3, workers and supply. Minute 4, workers supply. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All the way to 10. You write down my exact worker count at the exact moment of 10 minutes, and 9 minutes and 8 minutes and whatever. And worker supply and workers and total supply. And you do the exact same thing to yours. And what you would see right now, I guarantee at 6 minutes in my build, you have 44 workers and 59 supply in total. In my build, in my example, at 6 minutes, I bet I probably have like 59 or like 63 workers, something around there already. And I probably have 88 supply or something like that. So it is misleading if you don't pay attention to time as well. And because you might be thinking to yourself, well, I'm doing the build. I'm doing B2GM right now. That's what I'm doing. But you might, what you're doing for real is like a degraded version of what it really is. Because if your time is off in so many ways, where you're just behind the build already by like a full minute. Like let's say you get to where I was. When you're on minute 7, you are now where I was at minute 6. That is not good. Because time is something you don't get back in StarCraft 2, and if you fall behind, you don't get that back. You just have to play the game now from behind. So if you're falling behind and you don't know why, it's because your build is inefficient in certain areas, and you can break it down to where you go, okay, well maybe from minute 1 I'm tied with Vibe, at minute 2 I'm tied with Vibe, but now at minute 3 I start falling behind, and I'm always behind because you can't just recover that. That's not how StarCraft works. StarCraft's like a race. It's literally like it literally is like a time trial race where if you fucking drive off the track, you don't just have some recovery mechanic where you can just get back to where you were supposed to be. You're just now gonna guaranteed finish the race like 10 seconds later than you should have, or 15 seconds later. It's the exact same thing in StarCraft 2 in a build order. If when we're talking about efficiency, if your build falls off the train of efficiency, and if it goes back onto it later, you might be playing efficient again later on in the game, but you're always going to be inefficient compared to what you could have been if you'd never just deviated in the first place. You don't just get it back. That's a big thing people don't really think about in this game, but that is how this game works. So do that little notepad thing I said, and it'll help you so much at progressing as a player. And all the other techniques I just told you a minute ago, if you do all of these things, dude, I fucking guarantee you'll be platinum in a month. If not, maybe on your way to diamond. Like if you really are dedicated and it just clicks with you, if it resonates. Either way, anyways, let's so that's super important shit we just talked about, and I honestly feel like that's what you should take away from this analysis up to this point. But now from this point, we'll kind of go a little bit faster and we'll finish it off, because that, like, your build is already fucked. I can already tell you right now, everything is like already super far behind. So again, one of the things I think you should have done, just in general, is you should have taken a reactor on your second factory with a tech lab on your first. You should have made tanks and Thors out of your first tech lab factory, and you should make just Hellions out of your second. Why this is really good is Hellions are cheaper. They allow you to still do your build properly because they're not super expensive, which means you don't have to take all your gases super fast and all that. Like, you could get a third base faster, like 7-minute third. Well, again, go compare all that shit. But also, the Hellions being fodder helps a lot at keeping your tanks and Thors actually alive. So, if, for instance, if your opponent attacked you and he broke your door with like a bunch of zealots, or if it was Protoss, or if it's Zerg with Zerglings or whatever, Hellions will definitely help kill light-based units and they'll just be in the front of your tanks and your Thors to like absorb damage while your tanks and Thors last longer. It also would inflate your supply a lot. See, like, check this out. These two buildings. Look at this. This is what I'm talking about. This building finished at 7:30 right here. This factory. This factory's tech lab finishes at 7:35.
Upgrade. Command center upgrade complete. Mineral field.
You just did something at 8 minutes and 18 seconds. This thing finished at 7:30. So you wasted 48 seconds right there of time just on this one alone. And this one still hasn't done anything yet. At 7:30 or at 7:35, this one was done with the tech lab and it has done nothing. So this, I wasn't even watching this one. This one has also done nothing for who knows how long. Okay, you just started something here too. So about like 40-ish, 45, whatever seconds of time where these factories were literally just idle. And that's exactly what we're talking about. This kind of shit never happens in higher level games. Like, if you make the building, you use it, you use it, you use it, you use it. You don't just fucking make it and then come back to it in the future at some point. Your build has to make sense. And like, again, that it's not like your build has to be an exact build order. It just needs to be efficient. So if you make something, you use it. You don't just make it and then forget about it for almost a minute and then come back to it later. You have to like maintain production when you make something. And I know the game is overwhelming. It really is. I totally get that. I don't expect perfection. It's just it's understanding the goals of what makes sense and what you should aim for. So like just knowing that if your goal is to get promoted to the next league and the next league and advance all the way up through the ranks, that is how you'll do it. Shit like that. Understanding how to do this. Like, micro is not even relevant until fucking Diamond League, seriously. So people that have problems like this and they focus entirely on like, well, how do I micro though? It's like, well, if your macro is fucking suffering, it's not going to matter if you know how to micro because you will always lose anyways. What does the mineral count on the left mean? Up here, this is your total worker count. This is your gas per minute and your minerals per minute based off of what is currently happening with your income. It's based off of minute. This is how much you're making in a minute on average. And it changes repeatedly with all the turn-ins. Because like if the turn-ins kind of stop happening, it will drop. It's like a constantly updated number. It's just, it calculates the rate, essentially. Okay, now you should definitely be, I like the, like, you have the general idea down, though. I will give you credit, Robot Wizard. The general idea is there. You have the idea. You just need to clean it up and polish it a lot more. But the idea is there. I'm glad, like, you're both doing it, too. That's pretty funny. I'm really glad that you're playing this way. It'll help you a lot at getting better at the game. But you do have the idea correct. Like you're going for the overall pretty strong economy situation and stuff like that. You're trying to like become a macro player, which is going to benefit you so much. And there's two reasons why you're going to win this fight. Number one is your opponent move commanded into your army. Because he's microing, which is a mistake. Number two, which means it also makes me think he's probably not macroing very much. To be fair, you're not macroing right now as well. This is a problem for you too. But he move commanded into your army. That was one problem. And the second reason why you're going to win this fight is because he had a lot more Hellbats than you. This guy probably made Hellbats like crazy. And ideally, just to throw a tip out there, you want to make Hellions early and throughout the game in general. You do want to make Hellbats and Hellions especially when you're developing your economy, because they're cheaper than Thors and tanks because they don't cost any gas. However, if you can help it, you would prefer not to have like 40% of your army or like 50% of your army be Hellbats. They actually kind of suck in terms of supply efficiency. So if you have, once you're at that point when you have economies like this, when you actually have enough to afford a lot of Thors, you would rather have like 80 or 90% Thor and like 10% Hellbat rather than like a 50-50 split. Because if you walk a bunch of Hellbats and do a bunch of Thors, the Thors are going to fucking shred the Hellbats in seconds. Like, the Hellbats they're just fodder, but when you have too many, it's not actually good. You guys are definitely both playing B2GM. Hell yeah. One shot kill, robot wizard. Fucking love you guys. Hell yeah. See, like this shit right here. The fact that you only have 3 factories pumping and 1 Hellbat is being made somewhere. You're making a Hellbat. You're actually making Hellbats in tech labs. Don't ever do this. You should actually make a few reactors for the purpose of making Hellbats. And at this point now too, you should be ramping up your factory. Like the fact that you maxed out and you have a bank, your factory count. Remember how I talked about it earlier? You should have 16 to 20 if you can maintain 80 workers constantly mining efficiently. Right now you have a total of 6 factories, and 2 of them are not even control grouped or not even being utilized. They're over here literally just idle. You have 4 factories with all tech labs trying to make a combination of Hellbats. Like, look at this one. Hellbat, Hellbat, Thor, Hellbat, Hellbat. This is not efficient tech lab production. You only want to make Hellbats on reactors, and you only want to make Thors on tech labs. Or you literally can only make Thors on tech labs. You can, if you could make Thors on reactors, it'd be pretty fucking OP. But Hellions are universal. They can be made on reactors, so that's where they should be made. You don't want them to tie up production where Thor should be. So, if you have, let's say you have 6 factories, and these are reactors, and these are tech labs. If you were to, for instance, say, have 4 tech labs and 2 reactors, you could either do one of 2 things. You could hit T for Thor 4 times, or you could just hold down the button for T and hold Thor in for what you think will take 4 seconds. Like, for instance, if you get good with the keyboard, you can do this. Let's say I want to have 4 Ts. I just held it in. I did not hit it 4 times. I held it in and let it go. I guessed it. Let's say I want to have 10. That's, well, how many is that? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think it's, I might have counted. It's either 8 or 9. I think it's 9. But you get the point. Like, let's say I want to have 20. You can kind of like guesstimate it. And once you get good with the keyboard, you can kind of do that better. I do it all the fucking time with Zerg when I make units. Literally every game I play. So I usually will get it pretty close, if not correct, like right on point. Almost every time. And if you don't get it right on point, let's say you realize you just held the T button down and you have 1 factory still not being made out of like all your factories, and you're like, oh shit, we'll just tap the button once then. Be like, oh, make another Thor. Just make 1 more Thor. Whatever. That'd be fine. But the point I'm trying to make here is what you could do is you could just really quickly make all your tech labs first and then finish off with your reactors second. So don't make the Hellbats first, make the Thors first, and then make Hellbats second. And then easy peasy. You just produced fucking production out of 16 factories, 18 factories, 20 factories. Because right now, the fact that you are not maxed during the fight and you have the money to be maxed is not good. This is the kind of shit as well for late game you're going to need to work on to make yourself overall a stronger player. And you need to also be expanding constantly. So as well, so yeah, so you understand, like, just make more factories. Again, the goal you should aim for, once you have the bank to afford it, once you're already maxed, like, you should be maxing off of around 5-6 factories, roughly. Your first max can totally do that. Like, you stay 2 factories until you're like 120, 130 supply. Add on 3 more. You could max off of 5 factories. That's very realistic. Like, you could do it fucking fast. Because you're still making SCVs the whole time while you do this. You're making depots while you do this. You're making upgrades while you do this. You're making command centers while you do this. All these things. Once you max, though, and your bank starts getting crazy because you now have a bunch of SCVs that are mining minerals like crazy, and you're not producing units anymore because they're not dying yet, take your factory count from like 5, add on like 12 factories to it, add on 14 factories to it, add on 15 factories to it, and make like literally, I would say, honestly, I would say maybe if you have like 20 factories, make like 3 reactors and make like 17 tech labs. I know I said earlier 5 and 20. I just wanted to give you an example. But a real good amount is you want to have roughly like 4 factories to every 1 tech lab. Like if you have low amounts, but if you have higher amounts, you want to have more like 9 or 10 factories to every 1 reactor. So like early, because again, early on when your economy is not fully established, it's not the worst to have a couple of reactors, like 4-to-1 ratio. But if once you're high supply, once you have like high economy, you have tons of money, like literally like 3 reactors, 17 tech lab would be fucking great. You want to focus mostly on Thor. You don't want to have a 30% chunk of your army or a 40% chunk of your army to be a fucking Hellbat. It's not going to be the greatest. You want to have mostly Thor. Just maybe like 20 supply of Hellbats and like 100 supply of Thors would be perfect. But yeah. So you definitely need to make more factories right now. And then you also, here's another rule. You want to have, your goal is 4 base economy. Efficiency. And every time a base mines out, I've said this is, every race works this way. As soon as one of your bases mines out, patches, you take another base. So right now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bases. But now your bases also have, we also have to calculate how much bases are mining out. So we have 5. Now plus 1 more, 6, 7. You should be on 7 bases. This base is still okay. This base is still okay. This base is still okay. You should be on 7 bases right now. And why is that? Because if you were efficiently mining, you got to be really careful about this too, right? You got to efficiently mining. This is not efficient. You would want to grab these SCVs and rotate them around and fill in your bases that are not optimally mining. And as your patches mine out, you can always send your SCVs that have nowhere to mine, or they're mining like crap, to bases that are fresh. And now suddenly your economy can actually afford remax, 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 remax. Because the fact that you guys have been fighting for a while and you're not, neither one, like he's not remaxing because he lost everything, but you're not remaxing and you did not lose everything. You should be able to remax. It's because you didn't give yourself the tools to do it. And everything we just talked about is how you do that. And also, make sure, too, you always put your dudes in a high-impact payload. Some of these boys, I think you just did just now. You just did. As I say, when these guys are in explosive payload, it actually is pretty terrible. The only time explosive payload actually is good is when you fight against Banshees and Terran versus Terran. It's only good when you fight against Mutas in Terran versus Zerg, and it's only good when you fight against Phoenix in Terran versus Protoss. High impact payload is good against every other thing in the game by far. And literally. And even people who say, what about carriers, ViBE? What about carriers? I actually think high impact payload Thors are better against carriers than Thors with explosive payload are. And here's why. Interceptors, it's not a perfect world. You shoot 10 Thor shots at a pile of interceptors, they don't just all die. They don't. But what high impact payload does is it guarantees that you one-shot interceptors no matter what. Each shot kills an interceptor, and high impact payload has like twice the fucking attack speed of the other one, of explosive. So your Thors, even if they're not shooting the carrier and they're shooting interceptors, they will drain the fucking interceptors so fast with high impact payload. And here's the biggest thing of all. If the carriers ever get within range of the Thor, which it's very realistic too, because not only does high impact payload also have a faster attack speed, it has more range than explosive payload. if a carrier ever gets in range of the Thor will automatically start shooting the carrier. And if it's shooting the carrier with explosive payload, it'll take one Thor probably like a fucking minute to kill a carrier with explosive payload. I'm being serious. It'll take forever. But if a Thor is in a high impact payload, it'll take a Thor probably 20 seconds to kill a carrier. One Thor. Like, it'll go so much faster. So you will actually have a more realistic chance to kill carriers in general with high impact payload, which is the only one that I say when people are like, what isn't explosive better there? Because the interceptors die faster because they're light. It's actually not, in my opinion, because they spread out too much constantly, and you don't actually kill all the interceptors in one shot. You kill a couple maybe at a time, but you're killing them fast anyways with a faster attack speed with high impact. And you're one-shotting. So if you have like 14 Thors one-shotting 14 interceptors every 0.8 seconds or something like that, you're killing interceptors pretty fast anyways with high impact. And then if carriers get in range, they just die. But yeah. So you get the point. High impact, good. But yeah, I hope this helps. Not only you, Robot Wizard, but yo, one shot kill. If you somehow see this game, I hope it helps you too, man. This is relevant for everybody. It's not like focused on one guy at a time. What we just talked about is ways, like basically, remember how we talked about B2GM about how you're supposed to develop habits? Everything we talked about in this video is how you can develop habits in a good way. If you can do all the shit we talked about in this video, you will become such a better player so much faster. And it will carry you into leagues above platinum. It's not just like this gets you to platinum and that's it. Like, these are techniques and skills you'll use in the game even when you're microing shit in like masters and shit like that, and diamond or whatever. In GM as well. If you're a pro gamer, you still use techniques I'm talking about right now. It's just the baseline versions of it. Like the whole production thing I talked about where it's like 4-5. People use that shit as pros. Like, that's not just something that just like is neglected. You always look at this shit. You always keep tabs on what you're doing. You always keep tabs. Multitasking, like your multitasking as a skill as a whole, like your level of multitasking will increase as your skill level in StarCraft 2 increases. And players that are really high level, like Masters, GM, Pro, these players have insanely high multitasking. And the reason why they can do that is not because they can just multitask anything they want in the world now. That's not what I'm saying. It's not like, oh, well, now you can just fucking do 20 things at once no matter what. You're like a fucking computer now. It's not like that. It's that you build yourself up as a player in StarCraft, and you can multitask so many things inside StarCraft because you automate reflexes. It's specific to StarCraft. It's because you play so many games of StarCraft, and you condition yourself to check things repeatedly, and before you know it, you get really fast at doing all of these things, and people watch you play, and instead of watching you play and looking like this, and they're like, oh, this guy is kind of taking his sweet-ass time playing this game. Suddenly you turn into this kind of a player. Where everyone's like, holy fuck, this guy is like really fast. Because you got really fast at your automated reflexes of how you play StarCraft, because you've done it so many times. You just are quick at doing everything because you've mastered doing it. So that is what will happen to you over time as a player. That's exactly how people are like, ViBE, how do you increase your APM? Build good habits. Build good habits for yourself, and suddenly you'll be playing like a fucking god. If you have the right process of progression. Should I be playing multitask trainer? You don't have to do that. That's not required. It's just having the right idea of how to play the game and understanding the game like we talked about earlier. Those are things that will make you better as well, because it makes you understand what's going on at a faster pace. You don't have to think about shit and be like, well, I don't know. Is it good? Is it? I don't know. Maybe. You just immediately can say yes or no with confidence because you know. So that's how it goes. I hope it helps. Everyone who watched this, I hope you guys liked it. I know there hasn't been a lot of Terran videos, but there you go, boys. Here's a Terran video, especially for players that are newer to Terran or in lower leagues of Terran. This really applies a lot to, I would say, honestly, people low diamond or anywhere below that. This could definitely help you out. But much love. Thank you for watching, guys. I will see you in the next one. Shout out to Alpha Omega Aloha, or AKA Robot Wizard. Thank you for doing this, dude. Much love. And I'll see you guys in the next video. So until then, take it easy. Much love. And have a wonderful night. Peace, guys. Peace.